Do you know what we should talk about?
Well,
The accessibility stuff. We're like half an hour into the show. We haven't even touched on that yet.
okay. Yeah. So, obviously, I'm doing this blind,
Mhm.
and it's definitely a challenge. Um, I'm used to it being a challenge because whenever I was being given school computers, they had them like group policy to hell to the point where you couldn't even change the desktop background,
Mhm.
which also meant you couldn't activate the high contrast theme
Right.
without tricks and abusing kind of flaws in Windows XP to get it. Um, so I'm used to really struggling with accessibility tools
Mhm.
because at the time I just didn't have access to them. Like they were blocked away by group policy.
Mhm.
um, but once I got into high school and I had my own laptop running Windows 7, I had the ability to do the Windows Arrow stuff, so I could use the screen magnifier and the color inversion, and that really changed things for me.
Mhm.
Um, but back then, things were still light mode by default.
Right.
Like you wouldn't download a program for Windows and have it be dark mode. That was not a thing. Windows 10 screwed that up.
Mhm.
Because now everything can be dark mode except when it's not, because it's a dialogue box from 1994. Um, Windows is a mess now for accessibility. Not because the tools are bad, like the magnifier in Windows is the best magnifier of all of desktop operating systems. I
Mhm.
am very happy saying that. It's not great, but it's the best we have.
Have you tried
Um,
macOS or I don't know. I have no idea what the experience is like on that side.
I ended up buying a Mac Mini to do restitch testing on because we also want to support Mac.
Mhm.
And the magnifier on there works exactly the way I expected to, except for one little issue.
Mhm.
The further you zoom in, the slower your mouse cursor moves. Because what Apple's trying to do is make it so that the mouse is moving across the physical display
Uh-huh.
and not the virtual workspace.
Right.
So they slow your mouse movement down as you zoom into the screen, and there's no way to turn that off.
I was gonna say I understand that as an option, but it shouldn't be the only option.
Yeah, it's right up there with proportional zoom. It should not be the default, but it should be an option.
We definitely get to that. I want to talk about Windows first though. So
So,
yeah.
yeah. So Windows is it was great in Windows 7
Mhm.
and Windows 8 even. Like I loved Windows 8. Um I know it's controversial with Windows 8 because that was when they added the Metro UI
Mhm.
and a lot of stuff became like these full screen apps that nobody could figure out how to get out of. Like back then it was easier to quit Vim than it was to quit the Windows Store. Um but for me, I already use everything basically full screen all the time. Because I'm zoomed into the screen and I don't always have my taskbar visible, so I'm very used to having everything full screen and doing Alt Tab or whatever to switch between things. So Windows 8 was fine.
Mhm.
I loved it. Windows 10, I first started getting turned off of Windows when they actually broke magnifier in Windows 10 RTM.
Mhm.
There was this bug where if you opened a UWP app, which at that point was like half the operating system, even settings was UWP,
Mhm.
the magnifier just would completely glitch out and the entire screen would go black except for the little area of the screen where the UWP app would be rendering if it wasn't zoomed in. And it made my computer literally unusable. And then Windows 10 Threshold comes out and it
Mhm.
fixes it a little bit, but it breaks it some more, and now everything's like open AL or DirectX triangles stabbing me in the eye. They fixed it in Creators Update, but they should have not broken it in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then I think in like Fall Creators Update, they did some overhaul to the magnifier UI, and they kind of made it more of a UWP type app. Um, Before then, it was just a little window that
Mhm.
popped up when you opened it, and you'd have your zoom in, your zoom out, and then some options for like color inversion stuff like that. But when you're not using it, it gets out of the way and turns into a magnifying glass that follows you around.
Mhm.
Unless you minimize it, in which case it just stays in the taskbar and you can open it whenever you want.
Mhm.
But as of, I believe, Fall Creators Update, once they did the UWP overhaul or whatever, it stopped doing the magnifying glass thing, and it just follows you around everywhere as a topmost window. And at the level I zoom in, which is like 1600% in Windows, the magnifier takes up half my screen.
Right.
So I have to minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I just cannot see anything because there's a magnifier window in the way.